Very much looking forward to an enriching evening tonight, hearing what's going on in your schools. And we mixed the order up a little bit from last year, and there was no real intentionality behind that, except having those who will be more concise, like Aaron, go towards the beginning. So, all right, awesome. And so we're going to start with ATI tonight and Summer. Yeah.
Evening all. We have a few things for you that are sitting in front of you per our charter agreement, which is we have a packet that has construction. So we're currently in the middle of remodel. So you can see our phase 2 and our phase 3 plans. And we have our written annual report for our charter that addresses all the things that charters are supposed to do. Read at your leisure. And then we have some presentation. All right, so as most years, we're going to be talking a little bit about the previous year, and then we'll touch a little bit on how the fall has been going, just because some things have changed. So here are your armadillos. Actually, this is our crew that went to the academic scavenger hunt just this last week and had a great time. See if I can get the clicker to go. Nope, sure can't. Not so far. Want to teach me? This is a real tech help, right? Is it on? Did you turn it off? Is it plugged in? Does it have a battery? I know. Excellent. See how much I'm helping you all? Okay. Okay. All right. So we have a picture of last year. So we had at the end of the year an average of 71 students, and we had over the course of the year 71 at any one time, but about 100 unique students over the course of the year, graduating partway through the year, students coming late in the year. We had about 62 new students in the year. So over half of the kids we served for the first time last year. And following the fire, we've seen a decrease in the number of students coming from Phoenix Talent. So about 22% of our kids last year were from Phoenix Talent. And that's down from historically between 40 and 50%. And that's really a function of families moving away and the fire impact that's still happening and trickling down still. Our staffing hasn't changed terribly from last year to this year, although we have hired one on-call sub to be our all-time sub because our whole staff is 8 people. So coverage is challenging when somebody's out. This year, we're up a little bit in our enrollment. We're at 73 on average so far this year. We have 79 with 4 more coming in. So we're getting close to the place where we have to do a lottery and a wait list. So we're just a little out of space. Unless I'm doing it wrong. I could be doing it wrong. Okay. So we have, nope, that guy's out. So this is our surveyed student responses from 2021. So we're still pretty heavily in the economic disadvantage. And that's based on family income. We've got a huge number of kids reporting a barrier that's health. A lot of it is mental health, which is not surprising. I bet we're all seeing that. We did see an uptick in working, and that fluctuated throughout the year, but really hardly ever went below about 35% of kids working full or part-time. We had a lot of kids qualifying for McKinney-Vento. Most of our directly fire impacted students have already graduated. So these are folks who are couch surfing, living in cars. Lots of kids in foster care, and about 24% of our students had IEPs last year. That's down right now, but that's certainly the population that seems to find its way to us. It's Halloween. No, we love Halloween. So when our kids are arriving, we're still seeing, last year we saw about 70% of our students coming in credit deficient, and 45% of those were over a year deficient. And what we're seeing really this year is an increase in seniors coming with less than 5 credits. So they've never been in school. They have unschooled most of their time, and they're arriving hoping to graduate this year. So we have a little bit of reality checking and expectation setting, and then a lot of creative credit recovery. Last year, we had the average enrolling kid out of school for 22 weeks before coming to us. That's gone down. Now we're at 13.5 weeks out of school before coming to us. And when they've been in school, only about 20% of them have been going to school regularly. The vast majority have been going 1 or 2 days a week. So we're looking at very low attendance coming in, right? About 3/4 of our students are only with us for a year and a half. So we're doing rapid recovery and rapid addressing of gaps in learning. And most, we saw certainly last year, the majority of our students were 11th and 12th graders, almost 90% of them. This year it's at about 60%. So we're still favoring, but we had an influx. We have 9 ninth graders, right, coming in. We had a lot of 8th graders coming and touring our campus last year, which was new. We hadn't had that before. So that's an interesting sort of turn. So students not waiting until something goes badly, but just looking for a good fit from the start, which we think is fantastic. We've got a real focus on, when we think about our goals moving forward, we've got goals focused on well-being. We've got goals focused on credit recovery and credit acquisition. We've got goals really focused on getting ready for the next step. So we started surveying last year. We do an annual survey always, but we added these questions last year. And we're looking for every kid to say, these things are true. We know on any given day it's not true for everybody, but we're still seeing about 80% or higher answering, yep, true or very true. And the beauty of a survey is we know who's not saying true, who's saying meh, or I don't think so, because we can follow up with those folks. We can build relationships with them. We can do some targeted interventions, because if they don't feel like they belong or they don't feel safe, they're certainly not coming. So we're paying attention to those really, really intently. We're specifically focused on LGBTQIA youth. We're seeing a huge increase in attendance with our school in that population. This is our newly formed Pride Club. This is focused on the needs of LGBTQIA youth. About 30% of our student body is in this club. And we have a huge disproportionately representation and overrepresentation of queer and transgender and non-binary students at our school, which is wonderful. People feel safe to come to our school. We love that. And so we're trying to listen to what structures and supports and culture is helping to foster that. And this club is leading that, which is great. Attendance is always a challenge, because if somebody improves, somebody comes who hasn't been in school for 13.5 weeks, right? So we're not counting down from 100% attendance, we're counting up from 0% attendance. So every little bit is better. We also, though, are paying attention to what's happening when they're with us. So from the Willamette ESD dashboard, we had last year about 38% of kids being regular attenders, and we had about 39% right now. Interestingly, our daily average attendance is the same as Phoenix High School. So we may not come 90% of the time, but we're still coming. Right. 9th grade on track is always a little tricky for us because we have very few kids. So we might have 100% with our one student, or we might have 60% with 2 of our students. So last year we came in at about 64%. We know that 9th graders struggle sometimes at our school because they are not ready to self-manage. And so self-selecting in as an older student sometimes serves students. So we're still working to figure out how to best serve and build some essential skills early for those 9th graders who know that traditional big school is not the right fit, but they don't yet have those maturing self-management skills. So lots of family meetings are part of that, and some tight management with their team leader. So we're looking, and some of those 9th graders we knew as 8th graders because they came and toured. So we had some ideas of who they were coming in, which is helpful. So this is, these are some great wins. Credit earning, we had a goal to have everybody earning 1.75 credits each term. That means they're earning the classes, the credit they need to graduate on time, plus a class. And we met that, which is great. Our median student is making gains to graduation. So they're earning, on average, 7 credits per year instead of 6. So they're gaining as they go. And we really saw that come around. Our goal for 4-year graduation was 67%. And last year, we reported 81% 4-year graduation, which was fantastic, over the state average. Yes. So we're seeing that growth. That bottom graph is really what's been happening over time since 2015 in completers from our school. So small 4-year graduation, small completion in 5 years, it's been growing bit by bit over time. And we think that we can keep that sort of progression going, although certainly we know some of this is a function of who is coming to our school. A senior coming in with 3 credits is going to be very hard to graduate in 4 years. And also, I don't care because I want them to complete and I want them to feel safe and I want them to be resilient and I want them to work hard. And if that takes 6 years, that's okay because they're still sticking with it, right? So it's important and the state pays attention to it, but it's not the only important thing. All right. Oh, for comparison, this is Central. Central, they're our best proxy in the area, serving similar students. So Central last year, go ahead and hit again, had a 54% completion, 5-year completion, and a 56% high school 4-year graduation rate. So regionally, we're doing all right here. Okay, so when we think about those successes, what's working for us, we're continuing to use our team structure, which is a small group setting that meets every day with a staff person that's a go-to person. We continue to use that and we see it being really effective, but we see a need for more support as well. We need students to support each other and we might need some more sort of success coach, what we're sort of starting to call search and rescue folks to go out and grab the kid and bring them back. Because the only time we're not effective with a kid is when they don't come to us, when they stop coming. So we might need to go out and find them and bring them back. We're seeing our biggest successes come with Edmentum, which is a digital self-paced computer-based program that's standards aligned. And we use it in interesting ways. In fact, one of the things you have at the back of your packet is a case study that Edmentum wrote up about ATI, about the ways we're using that curriculum to help people close the gap and learn different ways. So Edmentum is certainly part of that. We use it under a proficiency-based sort of system. So instead of having to lockstep through the class, they can start by taking the final exam. They demonstrate proficiency, they're done. Move on to the next class, right? We see a lot of kids still doing a GED to diploma pathway. So they come in thinking, I can only graduate if I get a GED. That's my only hope. And they come and we can actually help them recover credit pretty quickly. And so they're shifting to diploma pathways. Because of the GED options program in Oregon, you have to earn credit while you work on your GED. So both doorways are still open. So kids can sort of shift back and forth over time. And we're still allowing students to graduate early. That's a big hope for a kid who just missed it last year. They don't have to just spend an entire year in high school. They can graduate at the end of each term. And we have quite a few students graduating a year early. High school is not their jam and they need to move on to something else, and they can do that with us. And flexible schedules is certainly something that we're playing with more than ever. Probably a lot of places are. There are lots of ways to learn and they don't necessarily always have to be in the seat in the room with the teacher at this particular time. So we're still using remote learning and a little bit of asynchronous learning to be able to meet the needs of students who are working, who don't have the resilience to be in the building with a bunch of other teenagers or things like that. All right, so we're addressing all of the same needs we have been over the last couple of years with a big addition of food. When we surveyed students, 80% of our students are accessing food at school besides breakfast and lunch, in addition to breakfast and lunch. So massive food insecurity. So we've dedicated some of our student investment account money to buying food that is in every classroom. So they don't have to leave learning to go get it. It's in the room. They can just ask the teacher. There's no running out. There isn't a time we say no. Yes, please have it. And then let's get back to work together. We're still building community partners. We're a tiny place. We can't do all the things in the space that we have. So we're sending kids out to access. But we've been particularly learning with students who need some more hands-on learning, that we've been branching out to get different kinds of hands-on learning. So 715 is an organization that does some vocational tech work, small engine, welding, things like that, that is hard to access when you're young, and they get some training. And if they're 18, they get some help getting into the industry, which is wonderful. And we'll end with a student we're super proud of. This is May. May was just honored today in Portland as one of the 8 students in Oregon that got the Beat the Odds scholarship, which is a 4-year renewable scholarship. It's really exciting. So she's, over the next few years, going to be sharing her story, encouraging other people to use education to beat the odds. And her statement to them was all about finding acceptance at ATI, finding a pathway that worked for her. And that's definitely our mission. So we're super proud of her and the team that helped get her there. That's us. What questions can I answer?
Always
I
love
knew
it.
it. I knew it.
I know. Always love it when you come. I'm so thankful that you're at your school. And I'm so thankful that ATI is a charter of Phoenix Town School District. And I just love what you do for students who you are. And I'm excited and a little interested about your freshmen coming in. It's a new from years past of what you've shared. So and you shared a little bit of some of the challenges. Are you trying to give them like a full 4-year experience, or are they coming in trying to, and this could be very by student, trying to kind of get in and get it done type of?
So it's a great question, and it really depends on the kids. So we can provide, we're an accredited high school, so we can provide the 4 full years. And some certainly stay. That happened much more when we had 8th graders. We had a middle school, students just stayed with us for all 4 years. We don't know what's going to happen. What we've seen in the last few years is that our 9th graders, probably 2/3, or if there was one, the one stayed with us. But we certainly see a couple of peel off, particularly kids who are interested in sports and extracurriculars, that sometimes they want to be embedded. In fact, one of our students came to Phoenix High School to be part of drama and a couple of things last year. So our goal is to make sure they're prepared no matter which, but certainly there's a home for them for 4 years.
And then you talked about looking at different supports and going and getting kids. Is something like an attendance support type of position what you're looking for potentially? Or
I mean, we're small enough that any position is going to be a utility player, but we are looking for somebody who can do some of that sort of whatever it takes, search and rescue, triage, supporting the family. But I mean, the type of relationship that it's going to take is somebody who can say, you're not here at 9:30, make sure your shoes are on because I'm on the way, and the kid will open the door. So it is attendance, but it's really, I think, more engagement, relationship building, no excuse, that kind firm connection. But that's also a person that will probably do other things like facilitate GED programs or other pieces. Also, we find that people are much more effective when they aren't siloed for one role. So even our Project Youth Plus person on campus teaches a class and has a team because they are trusted more when they're part of the whole campus. They're not isolated to one piece. But yes, certainly we need that. And probably a van or two to go get the kid and bring them back. And a place to park the van, which is the other.
all of the things.
I know, all the things.
I was able to get my truck in your parking lot.
I was
today.
impressed.
That was good.
Yes. good
Getting
turn
out was
ratio.
something different.
Oh,
But
yeah.
Rebecca, did you have any questions? Okay. Nancy? Don?
I do.
Okay.
Sorry. First of all, thank you so much for this presentation. And I've been on the board, as you know, for such a long time, and I've seen so much growth with ATI through the years, and you're a big part of that. And so I want to thank you on that. It's the compassion you can tell when you're speaking that you have for the students is something that is rare. And so thank you very much for being part of our district. I really appreciate it. My question for you, and you don't have to answer on the spot, is what can we do as a board for you? And especially Sarah and I, when we're, I think all of us will be very active in the legislation. So is there any policies or funding or anything like that that you can think of that we can advocate for you so that you can grow your program?
Absolutely. Yes. 2 immediate things. One is we need some big funders in the community to come behind the next phase of our construction project. We have a failing building that we can't afford to replace yet. It's not accessible. It's a challenging place. The sewage doesn't flow. So that's a piece. And, we apply for funders for grants in the area. We just applied for Lithia for Kids, but multiple voices saying this is worth supporting is enormous. The other thing that's really important right now is that care coordinators in the region, like Jackson County Connect or Care Connect, All Health, they have approved a rule adjustment that allows a mental health therapist to see a student several times before doing an assessment. An assessment takes hours, right? It can be a barrier to actually having services. And right now, a therapist is only allowed by Oregon administrative rule to be seen, so a therapist can see a kid once for a screening or crisis, but they can't do anything else. And then they have to stop and do this 3-hour assessment. So if we've got 20 kids waiting for a therapist and they cannot be seen, or that therapist puts themselves at risk, we're putting kids' lives at risk. And that's a legislative action. So talk to folks, get the rule, the care providers have already passed the rule. It's waiting on legislative action. And I have that OAR, I can send it to you if that's helpful.
Good question. And I want to recognize that Rick has joined us virtually. Rick, it's so good to see your face.
You're
And
right.
we're all sending positive. I don't know if anyone's delivered on that chocolate sundae yet, Rick, but I hope so. Did you?
Not yet.
Okay.
It's great seeing all you as well. This is wonderful.
Did you have any questions for Summer, Rick?
No, she's just doing an excellent job. She's been doing it right along.
Yeah.
And I personally just love the JAB meeting because I learned so much about what goes on in our schools. So Summer, you're part of it. Thank you.
Thank you, Rick. Good to see you. Have you had Representative Marsh or Senator Golden at your school?
Yes.
Okay.
Senator Golden is who helped us get funding for the current phase of our construction through
great.
the ARPA.
Okay, wonderful. Okay, good. All right. Well, we'll do whatever we can to support you. And it was wonderful I got to walk through the school today, and I'm just amazed at your resourcefulness. I said you're constantly putting a jigsaw puzzle together in the physical space, in the way that you have to plan and staff and budget. It's just incredible, and we'll do whatever we can to support you. And thank you for what you're doing for these kids who just need hope and someone who believes in them. So thank you.
We appreciate you. I know this gets said often, but we sometimes have new board members. Mostly charter schools get approved when they have higher than state graduation rates, higher than state. So it's a risk for a board to approve a charter that has tough numbers, right? You're leading with heart, not with, the narrow version of success. So we appreciate that you continue to support students who are not part of your district. You're caring for the whole region for kids who've gotten the short end of the educational stick for their whole lives. And we appreciate you giving them a home.
You bet.
Can I
Thank
ask
you.
one more? I know.
Yes, Sarah.
So, in looking at funding for your district, are you looking to continue to remodel your space or potentially move to a different space?
Yes, that's a good question. So part of the ARPA funding was contingent on staying where we are, partially because we have invested in the facility, and partially because it's close with the district. So we don't anticipate entirely moving, but we would love to acquire one of our neighbor properties to do a little bit of work that way. It's limited ability, but we also are not a school that wants to expand. We will not be functional if we have 150 students. It's not the same thing. So we intentionally need to stay small, but if we could get a little bit bigger, we'd be more effective. Yeah.
Thank you so much. Hey, Aaron, you got 3 minutes. No, I'm just kidding.
So I'm happy to be here talking with you today about Phoenix Talent Rising Academy. One of the things that I do for the district, we're doing some pretty good things, I think, for a certain subgroup of our families, and I've talked to you guys about that over the course of each board meeting. So let's kind of get into what we have going on. In terms of our school structure, you can see kind of what we have up here. Very similar to last year, we have one fewer teacher. We have fewer students, as you guys know. I've talked to you about that. Just 2 teachers. We've got a classified person who handles our office manager duties, our registrar duties, our instructional assistant duties. And then we have a physical classroom at PES. And most of our stuff is done virtually online, as you guys know. So here's our enrollment numbers, what they look like as of yesterday. So right at 30 kids, K through 8, and actually it's first through 8. We're not really actually recruiting for kindergartners. I don't know that it's the best place for a kindergartner to be, maybe in a certain circumstance, but we really encourage most kindergartners to go to school in person if they can. But you can see the breakdown. So our elementary teacher has 14 kids currently, and our middle school teacher has 16. And then we are serving Compass Plus, which is a high school alternative ed program. That's an all fully virtual high school program. And so you can see the numbers there too. And so that's kind of a caseload management for our secondary teacher as well. So most of those kids are also self-paced. And where are they coming from? Where are these kids coming into PTRA? These are their attendance areas. So no real rhyme or reason to it. Just happens to be what it is. We do have a couple kids from out of district that are coming to us, and we've got interdistrict transfer in place with them. We've actually had to turn a couple kids away who wanted to come to us, but they weren't released to our district. So just because they're virtual, they still have to live in our district or be district residents in order to access our programs or have that interdistrict transfer. So our elementary program is basically a homeschooling program. Our teacher does 5 lessons every day, synchronous lessons with every grade level. So that's, well, 5 grade levels this year. And she does 2 days of reading and 2 days of math. Then they do a day of art and science. So those are half-hour lessons, but primarily the lessons or the instruction is delivered by the parents at home. So it's a structured homeschool program to keep those kids in our district. And that's the format. Everything we offer is, we do offer a lot of in-person opportunities, field trips, in-person classroom stuff, but it's all voluntary. So parents and students who feel uncomfortable coming in person never have to do that as an option. All right. So our elementary teacher, I just mentioned, teaching reading, science, and math directly. And then we have support options for social studies, health, PE, and art. And then our middle school program, you guys heard Summer reference Edmentum. Edmentum is the basis for all of our courses at the middle school level and at the high school Compass Plus level. Our teacher meets once a week with the entire class, and then once a week with each student individually, all virtually, checking in on their progress. And then that teacher grades assignments, checks in on pacing, and make sure the students are kind of moving along as they should be. And we do offer an in-person academic support and socialization option once a week as well. Again, optional. All of our students this year, one of the changes we have this year is all of our students are taking 7 classes each quarter. Instead of last year, they were taking 3 core classes each quarter, but they were taking full length classes, meaning they were going to squish a full year's curriculum into a semester. Now we've reverted to more of a traditional middle school model where they're taking their core classes all year long. And you can see the core classes, just your typical core classes. We are going to be meeting our PE minute requirement, which is new and improved this year. We're going to make that happen. And yeah, electives change at each quarter. Sometimes, some of them actually are semester too, but the advisory class lasts all year. These are our classes we're offering this year, and these are all offered through Edmentum. Other than the topics in carpentry, which is our Talent Maker City. Some of you guys may have seen some of those pictures and some of the things we're doing down there. And actually, some of these pictures along the side are some of that Talent Maker City activities. But they've been building all kinds of things down there, picnic tables, beds, benches. I think they're currently working on jewelry boxes right now. So very cool stuff. But all the rest are online options that are available to students. So it's a broad offering. And it's one of the favorite things that parents talk about in terms of our program is the options that they have for electives. I just put this up here because the other elementary schools are going to put up theirs. You'll notice that there's nothing in there. The only thing that you can see is our regular attenders. We had 67% regular attenders, and don't be confused by that. That's not 67% attendance rate. That's 67% of the kids were regular attenders, meaning they attended 90% or more of school. But I can tell you right now that we have 94% of our students are regular attenders this year. So we're excited about that. All of those language arts, math, science, those scores are suppressed because we have so few students. We don't have enough for you to see how they did, but you'll get to see that with the other elementary schools. Our iReady diagnostic information that we do have for you. And so we've actually got really good results so far this year with our students in iReady. What you're looking for is the greens. You want to see students obviously in the green, right? We want to reduce the number of students in red and yellow. And this is our reading data. So we have 48% of our kids are coming into this year reading on grade level. So they're in good shape. And you really need that, obviously, in a program that's going to be self-paced and instruction at home. On the math side, you'll see like this. It's not as good news here, but kind of in line with what you're going to see with the rest of our district too. We've got a lot of kids who are just one grade level below. As you can see, almost half of our kids are one grade level below. And then we've got about 20% of our kids that are on grade level for the math. So we're hoping to see those increase during our winter diagnostic. So we've got 3 goals this year at PTRA. And I talked to you guys about this last year. Building community and a sense of place in a virtual school is really critical. And that takes relationships and effort above and beyond what you would do in an in-person school. So all those hybrid opportunities that we're doing, we're having field trips at least once a month. And those field trips, the parents are invited, younger siblings are invited, everybody's invited. So when we have field trips, it's a big contingent of folks. We have virtual socializing opportunities that we try to do. We're also doing all the family engagement work that our other schools are doing in terms of family data nights and getting our parents involved as well, just trying to make sure that they're connected. And that part is actually a little easier for us because our parents are doing the instruction at home as opposed to in our in-person schools. In terms of attendance, you saw what our attendance looked like last year. We're looking to be much better than that. And I've talked to you guys about attendance a couple times at board meetings. Our attendance has looked very good this year. We're very excited about that. And we're doing that in a personalized and individualized way. So we're looking to reach out to families, and we have few enough families that we can actually do that. We can be in person, in touch with them every day in a way that maybe bigger schools can't do. And then finally, that math achievement. You guys have seen, you're going to continue to see where we are in terms of math in our district. So we want to continue to help support that district goal from our end as well to get that math achievement up. So those are our goals, and that is PTRA. My main goal for you guys is to just have a sense when people ask you in the community, what is PTRA? What is virtual school? I want you guys to be able to speak about that with a little bit of information. So questions?
We'll start down with Rebecca. Did you have any questions? Oh, okay. Nancy? Don?
Don't hate me. I'm sorry. I always have, you guys
It's
all
okay
know
to have
that I'm going to have
questions.
100 questions. So I have like 3 questions. I apologize. On high school, are the kids coming, are they on track for graduation and on credits, or are they behind?
Generally, they're behind. And I
Okay.
should have mentioned, they're still, as opposed to our K-8 kids, they're still PHS students. They're high school
Okay.
students. So they're not PRA students. We're just serving them through that Edmentum and course
Oh,
management
okay.
side. So
Okay.
they're still high school kids. But yeah, most of those kids are actually not on track.
Okay. And so they're coming to you through the high school as a recommendation because they
Yeah,
felt
we
it was
work
a
with
benefit?
we work with Kent and the counselors and
Okay.
get kids in that for whatever reason they need to have a virtual option.
And then my second question is, what is your capacity for growing the program if it was something that you were going to do?
The capacity is limitless. It's just a
Okay.
matter of reassigning staff as we need it. You know, we reassigned staff back to the buildings this year because we did not need them. We could come back, but in terms of how many could we take, it just it would be about us assigning resources. It's not a physical capacity issue, obviously. So all we need is the personnel to deal with them.
Okay. And then my last question is similar to Summer. What can the board do to support you, and what could we do to help change policy to help you?
I'm going to go back. I just was looking last week at the remote learner guidance, and there were things that came up that I thought about and are not in my mind right now. But if it's okay, I'll send you an email. There are some things that I think that we could do. I'll tell you particularly, one of the things that does jump back to my mind is attendance policy. The attendance policy is a little bit, well, it's written for in-person school. So there's some things that we could do that would, I think, be positive for all remote learning students.
Have you been partnering with Medford or Ashland as far as the online academies as numbers and kids go back to school, and really looking at allocating resources and cooperative as a region in either growing or supporting each other or figuring out.
Yeah,
how
so
to
we have a
best use.
statewide coalition of remote school learners that meets every 2 months. But then regionally, we have individual relationships. I think I talked a couple board meetings ago about a connection that we have with Ashland Connect. And so we're working with them in a PLC right now. They have a very similar program to ours. Medford Online Academy is a little bit different than ours. We also work with South Valley Academy in Rogue River and GP Connect, which is up in Grants Pass. A lot of similarities and then a few differences, but we're trying to kind of pool knowledge really and experience at this point because it's pretty new to everybody. So just dealing with all the common things, like what do you do in terms of attendance and how do you track kids down? How do you attract and retain students? So, yeah.
I was surprised. I actually did not know that we could only allow students within our attendance area and that those coming outside would need approval. Is there a way that can change somehow? What would it take to do something like that? I don't know. I don't know if that's a question for you or Brent, but I'm looking at both of you.
We're a district school. And so in order to attend our school, you have to be a district, live within the district boundaries, basically. The only exceptions to those are online charter schools that are chartered for statewide use. So like Oregon Connect or Connections Academy, a couple others, but they've got special legislative access, I think, that we don't have. So I don't any more, Brent?
No, that's exactly right. And because we don't, a school in our district can go to Oregon Connections Academy without any approval. And so there's certain, I think Baker Webb Academy is
Yeah.
one of them too.
There
There's
may
a
be
few
3 or
others that
4 in
are
the whole state
like that. So, but these have popped up, during COVID and pandemic and stuff. And so a lot of people have these virtual options now, but it's an individual school. I remember, you might remember when the board supported an additional school. And so those rules apply for inter-district transfers.
I know, and you would think, I kind of had forgotten that rule a little bit until we started getting some requests from people. We had some requests from people in California, actually. We had somebody in Chico that reached out and wanted to join us virtually. I thought that's cool, but sorry.
I was just gonna add, there's at OSBA, there's been I've seen some things where it has to be charter, and some districts have really the more remote ones have really kind of, that's the only way their school is in an actual school, is because like 60% or 70% of them are not in their district and they're chartered out. So
Yeah, and that limits us a little bit in terms of recruitment as well, because where our real recruiting base right now is we're not trying to recruit from the other schools where kids are already here in our district. We're trying to get kids back into our district. And so that means it's kids who are homeschool, kids who are going to like Logos or Connections Academy. So they've got to live here.
Any other questions? Rick, did you, or Nancy? Did you?
Oh, there it is. How are you recruiting those students, or how are you reaching out?
So we started this year with like a mail campaign. We got the names of every family who lives in our district that has school-age children, K-8, and doesn't go to our school. And there's about 120 of
Oh,
those,
wow.
and sent them each mailers. So that was the easiest way we could think to actually directly reach out. We didn't have, like necessarily a social network or something that we knew we could connect with them. So it was send them physical mailings. So that was what we did earlier this year. And then we're trying to devise some new strategies for going into winter break.
Rick, did you have any questions for Aaron?
I have to plead my ignorance, really, Aaron. How many school districts are there in Oregon that deal with this, that offer this same thing that you're offering?
A lot. I mean, not every single school district, but most districts of our size and bigger have an online option. Whether it's a
And how-
program or its own school. That's the difference. Most of them are programs within another school. Ours happens to be a standalone school.
And how about the size of these other districts? compared to what we offer.
The size of the program or the size of the district?
Yeah, enrollment, let's say.
Say it again.
The enrollment.
Oh, the enrollment of their programs.
Yeah,
The biggest I've seen have been somewhere in the area of 200. Most of them are smaller. Like, for example, Ashland, I think, has 12. And South Valley Academy is like 30, kind of like what we are. But in bigger, the
Okay.
biggest I've seen is around 200.
thank you.
Sure.
Very interesting.
Great. Thank you, Aaron. And I appreciate the having all that information is very, just sort of expanding on what we learned last year. It is helpful to, explain it to community members and people we talk to. So I appreciate that. Thank you. Okay.
Hi, good evening, everyone. I'm Shauna Schleif, principal at Phoenix. You want to introduce yourself?
Brandon Hammond, Orchard Hill. principal.
And Heather over at Talent. One of the things as we were preparing for tonight that we thought when we were putting our presentation, I'm like, they already know this. They already know this. And I was kind of reflecting about how our Accentuate the Positives have changed over time. It used to be that we would talk about, hey, come to this event, or we have this, we would recognize staff members, but during our Accentuate the Positives, we're really diving into the meat of what we're doing every day and being strategic about our processes and our plans. And so as you'll see in this presentation, a lot of this stuff you've seen before, but we'll get to go a little bit deeper into it. We'll first start off with some demographic data, but kind of the message that we have today is this idea of together we're better. We just know that collectively it's going to take a lot of effort on all of our parts to help students succeed. And so just being collaborative is really the theme of what we're going for in all of 3 of our buildings. So we're going to do a data review. We'll talk about collective efficacy, what that means and why that's a focus for us. We'll get into our targeted initiatives of PLCs and family engagement. Distributed leadership, we'll introduce the concept of SEEKs again a little bit so you can understand that, and then our systems of support. And then we'll end with looking upon the horizon, and then we'll answer the questions of what can you do to help support us and what we think we could, some things to some considerations. So here's our demographics for each of the 3 schools. So as you can see, we're increasing from where we were last year post-fire. So we're still increasing there. And then we have different but similar demographics in certain areas. And so you can just kind of see where we are with that. I don't know if I need to go into all of the specific details, but you can read those statistics. Here's a glimpse of our iReady data for each, or not each of the individual schools. We'll go into the individual school data, but that's all 3 elementary schools. And so of course our goal is to increase the green. We would ideally have the ideal pyramid would look like 80% green, 15% yellow, 5% red. And so that is kind of the goal of that we're aiming for. And then here are the state report cards, which you've seen before. So this isn't new, but you can see here we have our iReady data from our fall diagnostics. And so again, you can look to see that we're really looking at increasing moving our yellows to green, and then really moving some of our reds to yellow. And of course, ideally we want growth for all. And we just know that that's kind of a continued aim, but you can see the last year's data. Here you'll notice that PES has a long ways to go, and we recognize that. And I want to thank Tiffany. We're working on some root cause analysis work to really dive into what we have influence over. So sometimes we like to get into explaining problems that we don't have influence over. And so it's like, what can we do to really improve those numbers right there? And then here's Orchard Hill. Again, we have lots to celebrate, but we also have lots of growth. So this is just our achievement data, but when you look and measure the growth that we have, we are a school of growth, and we really want to continue to do that while also accelerating achievement. Again, we talked about this idea of together we're better. It's going to take effort on all of our parts working. And so we love this quote that alone we can do so little, but together we can do so much. And then I want to talk a little bit about this idea of collective efficacy. So when you look at like when you look at research in terms of what is it that takes the what is the most single best strategy that we can employ to help people or help our kids learn? It's this idea of collective efficacy. And what that is that do we have a belief that our kids can learn and grow? And then how do we continue to grow and foster that belief? And sometimes that takes little small measures of success that then builds momentum and then keeps us going further. But one of the things that I alluded to earlier is that we are really focused on collaboration. And so all of the theme of collaboration you'll see throughout all of our initiatives. And so I'll go to the next slide because we have everything kind of drives from our school improvement plans. And we've talked about this for the last several years in terms of how we're really being precise and intentional about being focused on academic acceleration, a sense of belonging and well-being, social emotional learning, and then family engagement. And so we'll go deeper into that. So professional learning communities, you've heard that term before, but really that's how are we working together and how are we doing it in a way that's intentional? So some of the things that we're doing and have strengthened is that we're really, in my time as an elementary principal, we have grown stronger as a unit. And that's why we're doing this presentation together, where you used to do it as 3 individual schools, but we're aligning our practices, we're aligning our curriculums, or not curriculums, but we're aligning our standards and then meeting as district level, grade level teams, rather than just each individual school kind of doing their own thing. And so that's a part of collective efficacy. So we've done a lot of work around common standards, common practices, and those kinds of things. So that feels really awesome. And then And then getting into, we have support. And what that support is, we have 2 great curriculums that we know are going to help support us in helping accelerate our achievement, especially if we, which we are doing, implement those with precision and with fidelity. And so that's another role of the PLCs, is to be working together to make sure that we're all in alignment with implementing those research-based curriculums. Then the next thing is a part of the PLC is this idea of using data to help drive decisions. And so getting really clear about, there's this habit sometimes when you're doing data analysis is that we spend all this time planning, and then we don't spend enough time kind of in the analysis phase. Things didn't go the way we thought, and so we go back to planning. And so we're really pushing ourselves in this idea of improvement science and utilizing the research around improvement science to kind of continue to use our data to help target intervention, and then also to really drive our core instruction programs. And so that's it.
I'll talk a little bit more about family engagement. I feel like we are talking ad nauseum about some of these initiatives with you, and I'm sorry, but we're like, well, what are we doing? We're doing what we're sharing. And sometimes we don't get the opportunity because accentuate the positive is supposed to be fast. We get told that every week or every 2 weeks. Be quick. So like, to hopefully eloquently describe why we're focusing so much on family engagement, it's this notion that family engagement is really an instructional strategy. It's not about like, hey, come to a carnival. It's gathering with intention. And we've been learning that. What does that mean over the course of this last year in our professional development and our conversations with our leadership teams? But if I were to simplify really what it means to gather with intention, we're gathering with families to help them connect with each other, especially coming out of the pandemic. We heard that from everybody that, wow, I haven't seen that family for 2 years. And so really being strategic and intentional about that. And we have some data from the end of last year that had said that, like, oh yeah, you guys don't do that, right? Obviously we didn't do it because we couldn't, but now we get to do it. And so we're really focused on at conferences next week, gathering with intention and making sure that we have really an agreement to systematize connecting when we gather with our families. We're also committing to using data with our families and sharing back data, not just individual data, but collective classroom data sets and school data, so that we can see as a community where we are in performance. And then when we gather, we're going to definitely share strategies how families can engage and support the work that we're doing in schools. Right now, you may or may not know, I'm sure we've said it, but we have a district-wide focus at elementary on fluency. As you probably know, fluency is the ability to read words in a fluent manner so that you have correct, accuracy and tempo, so that you can actually comprehend. In elementary, is this going in and out? Sorry, Chris. Okay. In elementary, you go from like this learning to read to reading to learn. And so like there's many steps along the way about learning to read. But what we know is that when kids can fluently read and with accuracy, they're going to get to that beautiful space of being able to read to learn. And so we even have our music teachers. I don't know if you know about this, but Andrea, who's one of the music teachers from Orchard Hill, she goes over to Phoenix too. She did this great analysis about how music is fluency and how the music program can support this work in fluency. And it's just a beautiful thing. And we've asked our families when they come in, hey, how can you support fluency? What does fluency mean to you? And teaching parents, like, what does it mean to be a fluent reader? And here are the strategies. So that's what we mean when we say gathering with intention, like laser-like focus on one thing that we know is going to heed really big results when it comes to all of our outcomes. And again, just shifting from that individual accountability to a collective community accountability for our students' performance. We did get a little sneak preliminary, we did a survey this fall, I know Rebecca did it, about like, how do we engage? It's our work with Sherry Wilson from Scholastic. And one of our opportunities that we're learning from that preliminary feedback, sorry, not supposed to share that, right? Tiffany's like, shh, because I don't think they're supposed to release it yet because we haven't met. But anyway, was to an opportunity for us to really get more two-way communication. You went too fast, but that's okay. But two-way communication, the parents are reporting to us that we give a lot of information, and Rebecca can probably like, yeah, you're saying a lot of words, but offering more opportunity for our families to come in and have voice and choice and help in the decision making. So we're excited to get this kind of analysis back from Sherry, not next week, but the week after. We have a meeting with her, and it's I mean, monumental how she's changed our thinking. So sorry, now you can go, Chris. And as we shared last year, we're continuing on this collective efficacy with our leadership teams. Each of our buildings has 4 teams, one centered on academic acceleration. You know, and Shauna talked a lot about that in her PLC conversation, but this is what our academic team is really focused on. Adopting a new language arts curriculum has been monumental. It's really a lot of work for our teachers. And so they're really looking at that through the lens of what does it mean to implement with precision in through this understanding of what the science of reading approach is, and using PDSA, which is the Plan, Do, Study, Act. That's improved science. We use a lot of acronyms, sorry about that. And you know about family engagement. And then we're continuing our work for social emotional learning with Ruler and making sure that we're implementing that program with precision as well. And that means we're all using these tools, the charter, the mood meter, the blueprint. Those are tools that teachers are using as tier 1 supports in their classrooms to make sure that students feel safe, they have emotional intelligence to express their needs. And then our last kind of leadership team is our wellness team. That started off last year as staff wellness, right? We knew our teachers and our staff really needed some intentional care, and it was a hard couple of years. Our job this year is really expanding student and family wellness along the way, which we have a great opportunity with our community care folks to help support that. And it really impacts wellness, impacts attendance, which is, a big problem across the state and our district. So we're still doing all of that, and I'll give it to Brandon next. He'll talk a little bit more about systems of support.
Very good. That was so good, and I am tired. Okay, just before I go into this, these my colleagues right here, I am very like on the building blocks, like creating the foundations. And what they are doing within the elementary, honestly, if we are not having ODE coming in a couple of years and asking how did we make the turnaround, I will be shocked. It is going to take time, but they really are building these amazing foundations that will affect the middle school, that will affect the high school. Just awesome. Just an outside perspective. Okay. So seats. In the most simplest terms, this what Shauna said about the influence that we have, the greatest impact is teachers. How can we drive our students growth, it's through the teachers. And this program, the SEEKS, is how we're going to make it happen. It's all about engagement strategies. It's about peer relationships, responding with each other, and having those feedback. Okay. So it's all about the concept of having something for the kids to do that connects to them. And then they're going to be talking amongst themselves as a peer group to say, hey, what did you see? What can I do better? What were some ways that we can address this instruction next time? It is amazing. I've walked a couple times. The SEEKS team, it was a volunteer group of teachers that said, hey, I want to do this. So that it really is an extra thing that they haven't been asked to do, but they volunteered. And I walked in this one, and we have a brand new first-year teacher, never taught before. And to see the level of her engagement, the feedback that she is receiving from peer instructions that have been there for, 10 years is amazing. And it's just this dialogue. We talk about observations, but it really is a conversation. They're simply looking at instruction and then talking about it. Like, hey, what did you see? What could I do better? And they give them very specific things to then go and implement. It's amazing. So SEEKS. The next one with the student supports, I was trying to think of how can I, because I am not an acronymer. And this, all the PBIS and MTS and EBIS and all this stuff, it's just like a little cloudy in my head. So I was trying to break it down for me personally. In Maslow's theory, so Abraham Maslow in about 1943 came up with this notion that in order for someone to fully succeed, they have to have these steps or stages. The very first is just basic, the basic necessities of life, food, clothing, shelter. The next thing is they have to have this sense of safety. If they have that sense of safety, plus they have the food, shelter, and clothing, they can go on to this next, this loving and belonging. And once they have those basic foundational principles, then they can start to learn. Then they're not stressed about what am I going to eat. Then they're not stressed about, oh, who really likes me? Or it is this concept. So I was trying to break it down in what we're doing at Phoenix Talent is addressing those basic needs. And the very first thing that we're doing this through is our community care. So 11 years in administration. When I was in Morrow County School District, they started a community care program, and this is the greatest way to connect parents and to the school. What do you need? We connect them with our community care. What resources do you have? What community resources are in need? And the community care can then go connect the families to all the different resources for really basic needs, really for food, shelter, clothing. That is what the community care is there to do. The next one is safety. Within safety, it's this PBIS, the Positive Behavior Intervention System. And all that is trying to create a system within the schools of how do we address being safe, being responsible, and being respectful. And if we can have a consistent system in place, then it helps the more long study of behaviors. And within the positive behavior, you have an MTSS system where they analyze where are the behaviors coming from, who are the students that are in need of behavior, and what supports do we need to give them in order to help them achieve. Okay. I put communication. So again, over the years, one of the greatest concerns I have is bullying, elementary. I get calls all the time from parents. My student is being bullied. What can you do? And I wish I could say, yep, I will take care of it. I will go talk to so-and-so and they'll never do it again. It just is not the case. But I have found that if there is an open communication, if the student knows that they can go to a trusted adult, if that trusted adult will then go and follow up with them and say, hey, how is everything going? And if they know that there is some kind of support system, some kind of communication, that is what I have found to eliminate bullying for the most part, because they know someone's going to be checking up on them, and parents need that too. They need to know that someone is being taken care of. And I really take that to the umpteenth degree. I had a parent say the other day that I make them cry because I call so much. But the whole point is just trying to be very open in communication. Okay. And the last one, this loving and belonging, is this social emotional learning. And I just want to read because this is just beautiful. Okay. So social emotional learning is helping kids identify their feelings, understand and communicate with others, and build strong relationships. In order for us to do that, we are utilizing Ruler, which is a curriculum that will help students to understand their feelings, to understand how to build positive relationships. And finally, the other thing, I can't stress this enough, especially within this last week, La Clinica is huge. Being able to connect with the students on a higher level with trained professionals. Our kids are entering school so up here, constantly lids flip and they don't know what to do. And the same thing with parents. They have no idea what to do. I don't know how many countless conversations I have with a parent and they just don't know what to do. And I love the fact that we have La Clinica right there that offers them. In fact, I left Orchard Hill at 5 o'clock and it's rare to see Carol, our La Clinica, our counselor, leave earlier than that. Having parents come in at late night, even meeting with students late night, it's just an amazing program. And the whole point of this, all of those programs, is just doing the basic needs. If the basic needs can be met, then the students are going to be able to have greater achievement academically.
Okay, so kind of looking forward to the future and the horizon of our kind of elementary program. We have done our root cause analysis at Talent, and I know that Shauna's going to find the same things when she starts digging in, and so will Brandon. But what is our sphere of influence when we think about how to improve outcomes for kiddos and how to make our families and students feel a sense of belonging and in it all under the this realm of wellness, and the things we have control over are the things we have control over. And one thing that we found when we were doing this analysis at my building was that we have agency over our beliefs. Yes, it takes a long time to really be introspective enough and kind of work with yourself and your own bias and understanding where you're coming from. But we can systematically, as a school and as a district, examine our belief systems. And I think what we see, especially, I don't know if this is the same at secondary, but I can say with certainty at elementary, teachers and educators love their kids so much that they are like, it's too hard. We say this all the time, they're not ready to move on. And that has really big ripple effects down the road. Not because we don't love them, but because we're like, well, they probably can't do it yet. And so we kind of kick the can down the road and it's not really helping them. So one thing that we're going to be looking to do is really do some examination of belief about what kids can and can't do and what families can and can't do and what we can and can't do as educators. We have agency over our pedagogy, how we teach our kiddos. We have a lot of agency over how we train our teachers, what we do when we get them. Not as much influence at the university level about prep, but we get to help support that. And then we, of course, get the agency over how we allocate resources. That's all great things. Here's where we need your help, the time piece. Everybody says they don't have agency over how they use their time. We have, a little bit of influence. We hit that. But I think as a board, that's kind of where we could probably ask you guys to step in at the state level, is to think about instructional minutes. Shauna says this, I don't know, probably like 5 times a year when we start talking about calendars and schedules. Her niece and nephew up in Washington are going to end up their career with an entire year more of education than our kids in Oregon because of the way we have set these limits for instructional minutes. And so we were just kind of talking about like, yeah, what is in the sphere of the board's influence? How can they support our work? And, we have so many minutes that we barely meet instructionally because there's a state limit. Okay, you have to have 900 hours in Oregon. What does that look like? There's no minimum days. We get to count certain days as instructional minutes, like conferences. It's questionable to me. But if you dig into this resource, the National Center for Education Statistics, it gives you a breakdown. Like even Alabama has more minutes than us, and that's embarrassing. I think Oregon can do better than Alabama, just saying, not to be biased against the South, but I'm like, what? We should be doing more. We can have our kids in front of us more days. We need to have them in front of us more days. Right now, what did you say, 167? I think in our district, we can have the kids more and we need them more. If we're going to really impact change, and that has to happen at the state level, in my opinion, because they set the standard and we follow it basically. So that's how you can help. Any questions?
We'll start here. Go ahead. We'll rotate.
A few years ago, there was self-regulatory type of games that was talked about that happened at the elementary level. And I apologize that I cannot remember what it was. Teresa Sayre was instrumental in bringing it to our district.
You're thinking PAX.
Yes.
Yeah.
Is that still a thing? I didn't hear, I heard about it in previous years more, and now I'm hearing other strategies. So I'm just wondering.
We've decided as a district, because when we kind of started using that PAX framework, it was optional. It was like, hey, who wants to try this out? And then we're like, hey, K1, you want to do this? And we trained them. It didn't get a lot of buy-in at the upper grade levels because there was those things called Granny's Wacky Prizes and all this kind of spleens. And it didn't get a lot of, the science is the same about regulation. It's all based in the science of understanding brain science and dysregulation and how do you give kids brain breaks. Ruler is a little bit more accessible for our educators, I think, because it talks about what is the mood meter? How do you measure your own pleasantness and energy level? How do you label emotions? What are you going to do when you say, God, I'm furious. Okay, do I want to stay here? Why am I furious? And then here's a shifting strategy. So that's what we're really focusing on now. They do a ton of brain breaks.
Yeah, and I would also say that the strategies that are within PAX are definitely used. Beat the timer, and we how we create our charters, which is similar to what a PAX vision is, and we use that same kind of protocol. But we're trying to limit the amount of vernacular, the words. You know what I mean? PAX, let's lean. It's really it's all about what are the most influential and effective instructional strategies and behavior management strategies to help students learn. So we still use PAX. We just take the best parts of it.
Don't call it PAX though.
I think I saw something. I was at Orchard Hill and I thought I saw something on the walls about something.
Toodles.
I saw, I can't, and I thought, oh, I haven't seen that. Or not that I guess I've been able to be in an elementary building in a while. And then my other question was on how can we help? I love that that you brought us something legislative to advocate for better for the students and in Oregon and in our district. Do you have any sort of suggestion from your perspective of how to? I'll use Brene or from that interviews. I loved your principal interviews, by the way. I loved that. How to start that conversation or disengage part of what would be an argument for against longer school days.
I don't know if we were even advocating for longer school days. I think that's an option, but I'm thinking about when I go back to thinking about my niece and nephew when I first started teaching in Washington, we had 180 school days. And if you think about take 180 minus 167 and then times that by 13 years of education. So my niece and nephew are going to get 162 more days of instruction. And that's a lot. That's an entire school year. That's near our entire school year more of learning. And I think that that has to have an impact, I'm sure. And so I'm just curious about I don't know what thinking about funding and those kinds of things. When we increase school days, that's increasing funding for schools. So I don't know. Is that what you were asking, Sarah? What's going to be the argument?
And I appreciate you clarifying for me, because when you talked hours, my mind went immediately to days, even though you gave the example of how we count minutes. So it's actually probably conversations with associations.
Definitely at the state level, you know
Okay.
that that's influencing things. Absolutely. But yeah, why don't we have minimum instructional days, right? Why don't we say in Oregon, we're going to commit to 100 days of instruction? Why are we counting that? That conversation needs to happen, of course, in concert with our conversations with the union for sure. But we can't ignore the data, and we can't
Well, and if you look at that website too, like Oregon's one of the lowest. I think we have one of the lowest requirements for in-person learning, or like amount of instructional minutes and instructional required days. And each state has its own different way of calculating things and stuff, but I think that's something to think about.
And you won't be surprised. It's been brought up. The discussion has been brought up, and the comparison was with Washington. So all it takes is a few more conversations to bring it back up and say, yeah, this is something we need to do. How are we going to close the achievement gap? That's one way to do it.
First of all, thank you so much for this presentation. And I'm looking at my notes. I'm really happy to see the two-way conversation that you guys are concentrating on that during summer program. During summer conference, that was a big topic at the pre-conference, that a lot of families are feeling that they're being told but not listened to. So I appreciate that, and I can't wait to see the data. And I agree that I would love to have ODE come down here and talk to us about that. My question, I have two questions. Is ruler kind of, excuse me, like the 5-point scale? No. Okay. And then, okay. And then I had another question. Oh, my last question is, during Accentuate the Positives, I've heard a lot about some, I guess I call them extras, that are happening at some schools and not the others. Like Sodexo now is doing a program that's going through all the schools. And since you guys are now doing more collaborative, is there things that we're missing that one school has that is working out great that we need to add to others? Sorry if I put you on the spot. You can, if you think of something tonight or tomorrow, you can always email us.
That's okay. I think sometimes, like for us, we have a really active PTA at Talent, or getting more active PTA. Shauna, I don't think has a PTA. And so being able to support like the development and bringing families in. And so sometimes we'll get these one-off things, like they want to host a movie night or a dance or something, which is great. But again, that's kind of a little bit more PTA driven, and that's which is great. I mean, it's good stuff, but I think that.
Yeah, and I think, when I first got to PES, that was one of my missions, was to create a PTA, and we had one our first year. But then COVID happened, and then we haven't really resumed that. But all of the activities that PTAs create kind of in fundraisers, we're still doing, like the jogathons and, like things like that. So we're trying to continue to replicate the same activities. We just have to do it ourselves. And thinking about how do we enlist family support, knowing specifically that Phoenix is probably the school with this greatest need. And so we're really focusing on this family engagement first, and then I think working on, creating a PTA, which traditionally is all about, there's a lot of fundraising involved with PTA, and then creating support for teachers. And so, I mean, that's definitely something that's going to be on the horizon. One of the things I wanted to say too, Don, though, about ruler versus the 5-point scale, I think the idea about ruler is this idea that all emotions matter and there are no good or bad emotions. And so sometimes with the 5-point scale, it's like when you get to red, it's like seen as something bad. And so this idea of normalizing emotion, and then what do you then do with emotion? Is it working for you in the moment? Yes or no? And then if it's not working for you, how do you then shift yourself out? So like watching adults learn about ruler and using those strategies themselves is pretty remarkable, and then helping kids do that. And we have anecdotal stories of children, like I have a student right now who like really struggled with regulation and has struggled, but she's also teaching other kids about regulation because she's been immersed in it for a long time. So seeing her like see somebody else who's really dysregulated, let me teach you about this, so it's really cool. We're definitely seeing some ripple effects around students acquiring skills of regulation because of this.
And a lot of it does start with the
I'll also just say, and I know this speaks to many people that have kids in elementary school, we have affordable after school care that's enriching at one school and not at the other two. So that's something that's, I think, going to take all of us to continue to brainstorm and participate. So because that's a need all across our district. But really Boys and Girls Clubs at one school, and there's a different model at different schools.
Can the kids from Phoenix Elementary be bused to Talent? And
They used to be, but then because of COVID, then numbers were shifted. And so now we're limited by spots. And so there are a few Phoenix kids that go to Talent,
Okay.
but the majority of the students there are Talent students,
okay,
like the overwhelming majority.
And just so you know, we are in contact,
yeah.
talks with potentially doing an RFP for after school care at Phoenix Elementary because Boys and Girls Club used to be at Phoenix Elementary,
Right,
and then
used
they
to
had
be
to
at
scale
Culver.
down. So with the potential of Culver Road expanding to have multiple students in after school care at one site in our district, I think, Boys and Girls Club expanding a few years prior to that would help really fill those spots as they get a bigger site.
How often do those numbers get reassessed as far as like potential for students to be at a school? I know that it was mentioned. Mhm.
I think the consideration right now is staffing. So if they could continue to increase their staffing, we could bring in more students. So it's like, once there's more staffing at Boys and Girls Club, and we talked about some creative strategies on how to use school personnel to help support that, to help build up the program. And then, so we're doing some creative problem solving around that, our solution finding.
I love that. Thank you.
Did you have any questions, Rebecca?
I don't really have a question. I have more of a comment on something that Heather said that I really liked was learning to read than reading to learn. The way how it is, and that's a really good way of putting that.
Thank you, guys.
Rick, did you have any questions? I don't know if you heard me. Rick, okay. Rick, did you have any questions for the group, elementary group? Okay, thank you. Thank you all. We're a little bit behind schedule, but not too bad. So we're going to we'll still take 10 minutes. Let's give everybody time. See you back here, 7:32 sharp. Oh. Check. Yeah, check. Okay, I'm not hearing anything. Oh, there we go. Okay. Next is middle school, I believe. Is that correct? I believe. Yes, EMS. All right.
Good evening. Thank you. I'm finding myself in a familiar position once again, where I'm thinking to myself, like, I can't wait until next year when I get to do the job presentation, because then I'll be really ready. But I really appreciate the 3 presentations that I just got to watch. I learned a lot. And yeah, I will do my humble best to follow those 3 excellent presentations, knowing that next year I might add a few more slides. So yeah, there's about 10 things that I'm thinking, oh, I could have talked about that too. But Aaron just warned me, it's better to say less is more, right? He learned that the hard way, it sounds like. So yeah, here we go. Talent Middle School. This is what talent looks like. I am loving the fact that our school is called Talent Middle School. I don't know if that really like lands on anybody the same way, but I get to teach at a school that's literally called Talent Middle School. And that's been really fun for me to think about, kind of plays on words. And this is what talent looks like. This is how my talent stands out. There's a lot of things you can do with that one. There's a slide that I probably should have had in here, so I'm just going to take this moment to say it. Some of our demographics. I didn't put it in here, but certainly everybody else had it. So I feel like I should speak to it at least briefly, which is we have about 51% of our students are white, 40% or so are Hispanic, about 9% are mixed race or other races. And then 100% of our students do qualify for free and reduced lunch because of our economically disadvantaged status. We also have about 15% of our students are on IEPs, and then 8% of our students qualify for English language development services. So that's kind of the population that I'm working with right now. This has been the statement that has helped me kind of have vision for this year, creating a calm, comfortable, predictable environment that is safe and effective for learning. And so everything I've done, even going back in June and July when I was getting to know the school and understand the needs of the school, these were the needs that really stood out. And that was really helpful for me to just continue to kind of pick our focus based on creating that calm, comfortable, predictable environment. My understanding is that the school, because of not only, of course, the pandemic and the fires, but also change in leadership last year and change in leadership the year before, then change in leadership with myself and Eric and Allison. That's the other thing I want to point out. Not a single one of the administrators I work with have ever done a JAB presentation either. And so that makes it really fun when we're all like, you think this looks good? I'm like, yeah, sure. Thumbs up. Love it. So we're learning as we go. These, though, we've definitely put a big emphasis in terms of that calm, comfortable, predictable is in our PBIS and our behavior support system and our interventions. And to me, that really, it says it up here. I won't read all this, but that we identify behaviors as something that a student is trying to communicate with us. Allison has done a great job of training our staff to think about that as some sort of unmet need or unsolved problem or a lagging skill, and that we need to help then develop that in our students and that they're communicating that when they're showing maybe a misbehavior. And so some of the ways that we're supporting these choices or supporting students to make good choices, we did expectation stations to start the year. We're doing a lot of pre-teaching and reteaching of behaviors during our homeroom classes. We have Bulldog Bucks, and the students are excited about those. Our teachers and staff have done a great job of getting them out, and the students are super excited to get those, put them into raffles. We just had our Bulldog store open on Wednesday for the first day, and kids were lining up to buy like little trinkets and snacks, but the enthusiasm was amazing. I'll talk a little bit about social emotional learning with Ruler. We have positive postcards that we've been sending out, and then also an emphasis on student habit rubrics is something that our teachers really put some energy into in service time. So these are our top 10 that we've been focused on for success this year. We started this again in August and in service when we were asking our teachers to really be thoughtful about how to set up their routines, their structures, and this guided kind of our overall school-wide approach to these top 10 behaviors that we wanted all students to understand that these are expectations and that staff would be communicating these and holding students to this level around being kind, being safe, following adult directions, caring for our campus, having their devices put away during the school day, managing their time and being on time to class, using their locker, so not carrying backpacks or bags around, having their materials ready and in class, dressing for success, and then certainly having a drug-free campus. And so these top 10 things have really helped guide all of our lessons and homeroom kind of expectations, and it's working really good. Student habit rubrics is something that I worked on a lot the last 7 years in my other job. We were very rubrics based. We ended up moving to a proficiency based system. And we realized once we were really clear and explicit about our content area standards and put that into student-friendly language, we then saw really strong growth academically. And so then teachers started to say, well, maybe we should also be really clear and explicit about what we expect our students to be doing in our classrooms. And so student habits, to me, sometimes we call it citizenship or management, personal management. But for me, it's when we think about it as habits, it's something that you can develop and practice and grow. And so we want students to be thinking about, yeah, if you target and have a goal around this, you will get better at it, especially if you're practicing it. So all of our teachers did a workshop during in-service, and I offered a format, kind of a school-wide format, but they looked at some different exemplars and came up with student habit rubrics that felt authentic to their classrooms. And so they are all using these to communicate to their students. And again, when students understand what's expected of them and they're taught these and retaught these, they're certainly more likely to succeed. And we know that in theory, but I think it takes discipline to really be coming back to it time and time again. And a phrase that I've really worked with a lot is sometimes teachers will say, well, I know it when I see it, right? That's a common, well, what does it mean to be respectful? Well, I know it when I see it. Or what does it mean to be responsible? Well, you know, it's the kid that's doing the thing. I know it when I see it. But when we communicate with our students regularly, we really change that dynamic. So it's the students know it when they do it. And we want them to be that self-aware, that they're knowing, oh, I'm being responsible right now. I'm being respectful right now. Our behavior support system, I think, is definitely working. There's moments when I have to encourage myself, and I know Allison and Erica too, and Misty, our student manager, they are working really hard. We are responding to a lot of teacher communication and referrals on a daily basis. And yet, when we do look at the data, this triangle, we're so proud of this triangle right now, because the majority of our students, 94% of our students right now, have 0 or 1 referral. So that means that just with the PBIS and the expectation stations and the student habit rubrics and the lessons, we're catching the huge majority of students and they're doing the right thing. And that's what we want to see. And then we have this tiny little chunk of kids, about 5% of them, who definitely have needed more than a few reminders. And then we have just a tiny, about 1% of our students who are really clearly communicating that they still need a lot of support and intervention. But we feel like we're on the right track for sure. And we're going to continue, of course, to work with students and families who need more support. And one thing that I helped teachers try to think about is, you know, the first 6 weeks of school is a great time to know who's going to kind of fit into that tier 1, like tier 1 is going to be enough for them. That's 6 weeks of intervention and it's working. But then our yellow and our red zone kids need another 6 weeks of intervention, right? We don't, after 6 weeks, we don't just say, well, that didn't work. These kids are still misbehaving. Then we have to do our next tier, which is again going to be another 6 to 8 weeks of more targeted, focused intervention and support. And then you're still going to have kids who are going to be in that tier 3, and they're going to, of course, need more intervention. But you have to approach, I think, the work with that spirit so that you don't get overwhelmed or give up. It's like the kids who need more, they're going to need more for longer too. We're also focusing on social emotional learning and trying to bring that regulation skills into our students' repertoires. We have homeroom every day, which is an improvement to our bell schedule, and teachers are really taking a lot of ownership over that. And also Erica and Allison and Jamar, our instructional coach, have provided a lot of great lessons, both based on ruler, but also based on community and culture development. We also have these amazing, we have a ton of these bulletin boards that our different education assistants or instructional assistants have been putting up, and it just really makes a great feel for the school. We still have the reset room. That is a place where students can go and take a break and practice some of those regulation skills and recognize what they need. And so that's been successful as well. Here's our report card, a little snapshot of that. Clearly the needs are huge academically right now. And our teachers are feeling that, particularly when we look at that math number, we've discussed that district-wide. But I think I was talking to 4 teachers today for their beginning of the year meetings, all math teachers. And it wasn't only just like that only 11% of our students last year were at grade level, but when they looked at the iReady scores and actually disaggregated it by like what grade level were our kids performing at, the large majority of our 6th, 7th, and 8th graders are below the 3rd grade level. Like, so more than 50% of kids are multiple years behind right now. So there's nowhere to go but up. It feels like the targeted focus that we're doing right now in this year and being aware of that is going to make a difference, but it is like a very wide range that these teachers are working within their classrooms right now. Not only below 3rd grade, but even some students really at the 1st and 2nd grade level on some of these basic math skills and certainly some of the reading skills. So the challenge is on for sure. So definitely we're looking at all subjects, but particularly math. We certainly want to increase our attendance, and it's higher than 69% right now. So I do think kids generally want to be at school, and we're working with, Erica's doing a great job of working with families to figure out our ones that aren't there, why they're not there. And then also a focus on student engagement in general and just making school a really positive place. And this, I went with the pie chart. I know everybody went with the lines, but I kind of like the pie charts. So again, it just demonstrates kind of the same thing that we know. We have a huge number of kids who are kind of at high risk right now when we look at math. There's some that are low risk, and then there's some that have some risk. So all of our kids right now really are at risk to some degree in both reading and math. So just a lot of opportunity right now for growing. Our new bell schedule is definitely helping with a number of these things. We have 70 and 75-minute classes right now, so students have a good chunk of time to work with their kids. Plus they have math daily, so that full 75 minutes every day is math instruction. That ends up being 3 hours weekly more math than they were getting last year. So that it does feel like if there's a moment to seize the opportunity, now's the time for them to be able to get more instruction. And then ELA is also every day, but it's also with social studies. But again, they're able to spend good chunks of time getting into that content. We also have a handful of electives that are fun for kids, and we want to continue to expand that as much as possible. And our athletics program has been really, really strong this year. We had huge, around 100 TMS students participate in fall sports, so that felt like a really positive experience for those students. We have a new athletic director, Derek Rodman, has taken that on. He's done a great job of getting information out to families and engaging our students. We just started our boys basketball season, and we have 40 athletes who are currently participating. Derek was able to get a grant already from Figaro's, and that helped purchase new jerseys. So yeah, it does feel like our athletic program is alive and well. And I think, okay, here, two more. We've also had some great clubs already started up, and that's exciting for the kids. They're starting to step forward and advocate for more clubs that they want to see added. We do have a Black student union, a Latino student union, and a Queer Straight Alliance for both of our grades. So 6th grade and then 7th and 8th grade has a lunch. And so that's 6 student unions that we have running right now. The Rogue Valley mentors are coming and doing circles with our 6th graders, and also a lunchtime activity for the 7th and 8th graders. We have a drama club that was kind of self-started by some students, and they found a mentor, and that's an after-school club. And the Boys and Girls Club has returned this year too, and so that's up and running. And then the Calm Club is my favorite one. That was the most recently, some kids turned in a form, and it said, we want to do breathing, yoga, and mindfulness, but they had actually switched the L and the M for calm. So it said the A and the L, so it said the Clam Club. So we want to start a clam club where we do breathing, yoga, and mindfulness, which is awesome. And then some other highlights, just certainly our family engagement as well. You heard from, of course, it's district-wide, this effort. Erica Ochoa has really led this effort, and I appreciate that. We're trying to get out consistent newsletters every other Friday and including as much information as we can. We'll be doing student-led conferences on Monday and Tuesday. We have a student success coach this year who is full-time, which is really exciting. Last year, there was a person in that role, but she was there part-time. And we found a fabulous woman this year who not only wanted to be full-time, but is a certified teacher herself, even though it's a classified position. She's very skilled, and she's running our after-school academic support program as well. And then our community leadership classes are really starting to take on more activities. We had a really successful Red Ribbon Spirit Week, which was fun, and a good food drive for Hearts in the Mission. We were able to collect a lot of food last month. We're trying to do more activities at lunch to engage students. And we've also put a lot of energy into helping students understand that Talent Middle School is not a place where we want hate speech or hate symbols. And we put a lot of energy and strong response into making sure that we're having conversations with students when they do make this mistake, or when maybe they haven't learned this lesson yet. And so sitting, talking with them, talking with their families, and already we're seeing a really dramatic decrease in that. And also the vandalism at the first month of school, we were still seeing a lot of bathroom vandalism, and that's also dramatically decreased the last month. So I think that speaks to kind of the community culture and just the kind of belonging and ownership that students are starting to feel again. So this is our positive postcard that we have this year. We've already sent these out to more than 20% of the school, and we're kind of keeping a tally so that we will target, and hopefully all kids will receive at least one of these by the end of the year. And teachers are feeling really positive about making sure they're doing these positive referrals and getting that information out. So yeah, it's been a fun start to the year, and yeah, looking forward to as it continues to fall into place even more. Any questions?
Rebecca, we'll start with you this time. Okay, Nancy.
I don't have any questions. I just wanted to say thank you for the parent engagement. It's been really nice. I've participated in different for a lot of years in different parent activities, and I had the incredible privilege of attending the Latino Parent Night this past Tuesday. There were so many families, and it was really a place where their identity was not only like appreciated but celebrated, and it was really, really beautiful. And it comes, I really think, through the leadership from Erica, and I'm just really grateful. Also, I mean, I've mentioned this before at Phoenix Elementary and Talent Elementary, where it really comes through. And today I saw it coming after as I was coming in, even just simple things that make such a huge difference, right? It truly creates a place of belonging. Walking into the school and listening to Spanish music, it just like really livens me up. And coming into Talent earlier this week and seeing the parents just feel at home, it was just really, really beautiful. So I'm really grateful for all the schools that are doing a lot of great work around that.
Yeah, thank you for saying that. Yes, Erica has done a great job of making sure we're connecting with our Latino parents. So thank you.
First of all, great job. I know this was your first year, and I think you did great. Some of these people have had lots and lots of practice. So my question is, what I've been asking everybody else is, how can the board support you, and like policy wise or legislation or anything like that? How can we support you? Because I know you've got some challenges to go through right now.
Thank you for that question. I would encourage you to advocate for middle level education. I do think sometimes middle schools, this range for some reason gets a little overlooked, and yet I feel like the need is so great at middle school level. And they've done some research now on the pandemic, the impacts, and they do say, I'm biased, I'm a middle school educator, right? But that those years were the hardest on middle school kids for a number of reasons, that a lot of our elementary school kids have already bounced back and are resilient. Our high school kids, at least they kind of got through it and moved on to other things. But, you know, we all know middle school is not usually easy. It's usually not the highlight of most of our lives. We don't want it to be the peak, that's certainly, you know, but we do want it to be a positive experience. But I think the impacts when you don't feel socially connected during middle school, it's hugely impactful. So And yet I think it's ironic in some ways that middle schools often don't get some of the federal funding or even some of the state funding, like our title funding is, more geared towards our elementary schools. Our Measure 98 money, which I love that the high school gets that kind of support to think about career and technical readiness. I mean, that they all make sense to me, but there often feels like there's something missing. So funding either around mental health support or more engagement activities, or, like I said, just finding more positive things for our students to do on campus when they're, at middle school. One that surprised me in particular, I hadn't looked into this previously, but we were talking a lot about the food and the snacks and what Summer was saying about having food around, and we anticipated that would be a need. And so this summer I was asking everybody, like, well, how do we get snacks? Like, how do we get food? And I was surprised to learn that like the elementary school qualifies for some food and snacks through federal programs, and it just stops after 5th grade. Like, as if middle school kids don't need snacks too. I was just shocked when I learned that. So even things like that, I think, sort of make sure that we're not overlooking the needs and not under funding or under supporting this very kind of pivotal and critical development in our students' lives would be super helpful.
I'm glad that you're calling out that disparity. I didn't know about, right? Like, I mean, there's so many things that I don't know, but it's fascinating to hear about the gaps, and it's almost, yeah, I mean, it's a very blatant disparity between elementary, high school, and middle school. So thank you for noting that.
Sarah?
I know at our last board meeting, I think you talked about signage and safe space. And so just wanted to, and I think Dawn, after the community engagement summer pre-conference, talked a little bit about signage, and heard a little bit about that at the OSBA conference too this year, and talking about like drug-free zone or a smoke-free space, or just looking at what our signage is, and is it welcoming, is it bilingual, is it I don't know, there's been so much on your plate, just I guess maybe an awareness of that, or how we could help and support, or I don't know. That's just really looking at the signage, I guess, at the middle school.
Yeah, no, I think it is an area we could certainly continue and improve on. Kind of at the beginning there, we offered teachers some kind of poster signage around diversity and safe space and inclusive spaces. And what I thought was really encouraging to me is they gobbled them up and put them up. And even with just sort of what felt like a quick ditch effort to just get a little bit more communication around an inclusive environment. Certainly the teacher and staff response was very, very positive, but I think we still have a long ways to go. Yeah, I think there's a number of things about, I look at this high school and like, it is so beautiful, right? And so Talent Middle School, we're just little by little, we're trying to keep our older building bright and cheery as we can. But yeah, I think there's lots of things we could do to continue that effort for sure.
And I was super excited to hear about a drama club happening
Yeah.
at the
Yeah.
do you know who's the adult facility?
It's our band IA, Jamie.
Oh, okay.
And she just stepped forward and said she was willing to do it, and we were able to
Nice.
kind of flex her time a little bit. And so I was super grateful for that, because like I said, these couple kids came forward and advocated for that. And sure enough, Jamie's been making it happen. And the transportation after school has also been a huge support that we were able to offer that for both our academic after school club and the drama club. Right now, kids are getting bused after those activities. So
Love to hear that. Thank you.
And I would just like to add to that, the signage, having it be positive or encouraging, strength-based, that's what I meant. Strength-based, because I don't want to just be positive for the sake of being positive if it's not authentic. But thinking about signage that's strength-based, not just at your school, even though, I mean, it was brought up here, but really at all of the schools, I think that's really beneficial. And yeah, I think that it's really valuable.
Rick, did you have any questions for Catherine?
I really don't have any questions. I certainly appreciated her report. Uh, uh, it sounds to me like she's had to deal with a lot of behavior issues. And so, I get, I have a lot of questions in my own mind. What happens when they go to elementary school and then they move on to middle school and all hell breaks loose?
One way of saying it. I think a combination similar to what I mentioned too. I think it just impacted young adolescents so much the last couple of years to have such an unpredictable experience and so many changes, and kind of going back to that core, what Brandon said about Maslow, a lot of that basic needs and safety comes from predictability. I believe it comes from predictability. And so I do think our young adolescents just, they forgot how to be students. They forgot to be on campus respectfully, responsibly. And I think just with our push to come in and say, this is what we want to create is predictability, there's just a number of kids who were like, I don't know if I want to be predictable. I kind of liked it when I could just kind of do my own thing. So I think a lot of it's just, and for us, it's not even disciplinary. A lot of the behaviors is support meetings, conversations, helping, kind of explaining to kids one-on-one what the expectation is, why we have that expectation. So it does, we have had a lot of behaviors, but I think part of that just comes with our efforts to bring the school together in this like cohesive way. And so it comes with a lot of work, but I do feel like it's working because what we're seeing even over the last couple weeks, and even as we're, kind of coming into this stretch, which with the holidays, I was imagining it was going to kind of ramp up, but we've actually had, like this week, the last 4 days, knock on wood, have been some of the best 4 days we've had all year. And that's sometimes kind of unheard of coming into the Thanksgiving break, I think, at schools. So it's, I just have to believe that we're headed in the right direction. I do know we're heading in the right direction. And I think the investment up front was well worth it. But yeah, we were really kind of creating a new culture for some of these expectations. And so it takes a lot of effort.
I'll just add, and I know my colleagues that have been here for a while would echo this, and we share with her, Catherine and her team. Catherine might feel it is working and believe it is working. It is working. Walking in the halls of the middle school is amazing. I'm so happy to see this behavior support data triangle, because that's what it feels like this year. The board supported some extra time during in-service week, and that was intentional and strategic by our administrators to work with our staff to get this triangle that is unbelievable at a middle school level. I know our red zone kids and some of our yellow zone kids feel like all hell's breaking loose. I get it, Rick. But as far as the triangle that goes and what it feels like in the middle school, it's pretty phenomenal. So congrats to you and your team. And I know that takes a whole team effort over there at Dellen Middle School.
Huge team effort. But Allison and Misty working together as our student support leads have been incredible. Eric has been a huge support, but I will say that too, even the triangle, typically a PBIS triangle, you're looking for 80% green, like 80% is like, okay, good. Then you have to work with your next 15%, usually yellow, then your 5% is a typical kind of PBIS triangle. So it's pretty exceptional.
And I might just be able to prep the board if they are asking, and I'm not, the high school might not like this, but there has been talk of expanding a higher percentage of high school success funds to middle school. Right now, you can only spend 15% of your funds, or there has also been talk about just having it 6-12 and not even putting any percentage on that, which would really allow local control to be able to spend the money where the most need is. So that could be a pretty easy win if they just expand that funding source already. That's that will be consistent for many years. Yeah, Measure 98, sorry. And now high school success, but we usually call it Measure 98 from 6 years ago.
I just had one question for you. I wondered, I've been thinking a lot about what our elementary folks shared about needing more time And I wondered if you could comment on that and add anything or what your thoughts on the need for middle schoolers and more time in the classroom.
Yeah, I think more time is always going to be valuable. Certainly, like I said, looking at those academic numbers and knowing that our students really need a lot right now. I mean, like I said, there are a lot of our kids who can't even read, and do not have basic math fluency, and at the middle school level, right? So yeah, I think more time certainly would be more valuable. I think supporting our teachers, I mean, that's where you get the crux, right? You want to support your teachers though too, to have enough professional development and support and even prep time throughout the year so that their instruction is really high quality. So, you know, I understand that that's always going to be slightly in conflict, but certainly more school days or a slightly longer school year where we could have more instructional time, as well as a lot of good, strong professional development days and in-service time, I think is important as well.
Thank you.
I have a quick question. I'll make it quick, and not necessarily maybe to you, but maybe to the rest of staff as well. If you increase instructional time, I know it would take a while, but wouldn't it eventually be easier on teachers because they wouldn't have so much, you know, so much catch up where you're not at third grade math in fifth grade, where you're not doing such a range. Wouldn't it eventually benefit the teachers? I know at the beginning it would be very stressful, but wouldn't the outcome be better towards the end?
I imagine, yeah. I mean, it would just give them more opportunity, like you said, to teach and to help our students learn. And I mean, all of us who know enough about the standards, each grade level standards, there's way more than you can really technically pack into a school year. And so, yeah, any more time that you can do to not only teach those standards, but go back and reteach to the kids who didn't get it the first time is always going to be helpful.
Thank you so much. Happy to report I also did not peak in middle school, so.
Good.
Just
I'm
close,
happy for
close.
you.
Yeah.
Okay, thank you all so much for your
Thanks,
time.
Catherine. All right.
I
Caitlin's
might
got her
just
coffee,
say,
which we
Catherine,
should
I know it was tough to kind of come in and not knowing, but my first job meeting followed Aaron Santi, who did a PowerPoint. He faded in and out of slides. He bounced slides in, and I had a trifold poster board that I bounced into the presentation. But so just I feel your pain there. Sorry, but Catherine, you were amazing, by the way. I mean, you had all the dial. Another newbie without a trifold poster board. Good.
Now, woo. Okay. I just want to say, I know that it's late and we're supposed to move fast, but I feel really honored to be at the end of this meeting. And I'm not just trying to like kiss up to everybody, but just being in this room with these people, it makes me emotional. I love the questions you all ask, and I love how invested you are. And I love being able to see like how aligned we are, not only in like our action steps, but also our heart for kids. And I think being in this community is really awesome, and I'm super thankful for it. So just before I start, don't time yet. Okay. Thanks. That counts. Okay. Check. All right. Phoenix High School, I'm Kaylin Cross. Thanks for listening to my presentation. All right, tonight we're going to talk about who we are, a little bit of our demographics, our journey to excellence, or what we've decided as our journey to excellence, what our pirate priorities are this year, some challenges we're facing, and then ask any questions that you might have. So a little bit about our demographics. Our student enrollment is up this year. It was about 640 last year. We're at 692 as of this morning. You'll notice that we have quite the diversity. We have about 42% Hispanic, Latino, Latinx population. We have 49% white, and you can read on, but we're really proud of the diversity that we have at our school. Some of what we're prioritizing this year is just making sure that there are opportunities for all students. Super thankful for the work that Kelly and the team are doing to make sure that we have affinity groups and alliance groups for students. We've already jumped into some of our multicultural club hosted homecoming dance. Am I cutting him in and out a little? And that was really great. We had an awesome variety of music and just really a great show out. We just started an LGBTQIA+ club, and we're really excited about that. And some leadership opportunities for students in that group. And we are starting a Black Student Union when we get back from break in December. So super excited about that. We also have a lot of really fun student created clubs. And as you know, we have invested in Link Crew to make sure that every freshman coming into our school is anchored into a group that's led by either a junior or a senior or a combo of the two. PHS currently has 26 clubs and it's growing all the time. Thank you, Dave. And 17 varsity sports. These are just highlights actually from our last weekend. You all know it's been very eventful. Go ahead. Thank you. This is nothing new, but I wanted to draw your attention to the Journey to Excellence for Everyone. That is actually one of the reasons that I decided to take the jump over to Phoenix Talent were because of these 4 priorities. So 90% of students will attend 90% or more of school each year. 60% of students in 10th grade will meet state grade level expectations in English and math district-wide. Every student at the completion of 9th grade will have 6 or more credits. 90% of all students will graduate on time with a regular or modified diploma within 4 years of starting high school. And then, you know, pandemic and stuff. But I wanted to tell you how we are leaning into these goals. Go ahead. So a little glimpse into some of our data. Last year, we were so proud of our 95% on-time graduation rate. We hang our hat on that a lot, and it's not just a percentage. I was talking to a couple people before this presentation about how that percentage, every single percent is a student, is a family, is a story. And so that is something really to be proud of, and we're proud of it every single day. We ran some Q1 data, and we're really proud to say that our seniors on track rate is 89% right now. And to break that down and talk a little bit more about those specific students, 138 out of 155 of our seniors are on track right now to graduate. So that means there's 18 that are not. Out of those 18, 8 of them are enrolled in one of our alt ed programs, so either Compass Plus or Compass. We also have 7 of those students of the 18 who are less than half a credit away from being on track, and they're actively enrolled in credit retrieval. Russ Ann Pond is working with them, making sure they're cranking those credits out in a valuable way. We have 1 student who's working hard on a modified diploma out of that 18, and we have 2 students that we're continuing to try to reach to bring them back, get them on track, and get them where they need to be, and that's just the reality of that. I also wanted to report our freshmen on track data, which is at 89% as well. 167 out of our 187 are on track. That means 20% are not. So we have a after program called ASAP. So every single student, every one of those 20s, parents have been contacted by our graduation coaches. They're starting to attend ASAP. We've arranged transportation. They're also enrolling in credit retrieval as they can. They are attending grad coach meetings, both with parents and individually, and we're making sure there's lots of family involvement. So those are some of the things that we're doing to raise those numbers from 89%. So in addition to those data points, I wanted to let you know what we're focusing on this year. And that comes out of 1, Brené Brown's point, clear as kind, is something that I say a lot. And also because if everything is important, nothing is important. So 3 priorities: attendance and tardiness, student behavior support, and family engagement. These priorities were born out of interviews that I was able to do with every single staff member this spring. So thank you for the time to be here on campus last spring so I could make sure we could prioritize what our teachers and staff were seeing. These priorities exist, support the magic that's happening in classrooms through instruction. So if we can focus on these, then our teachers and our staff can make sure magic is happening in the classrooms because we're all about teaching and learning. So a little bit of a breakdown of how we're doing that. First, attendance and tardies. We are anchoring ourselves to our student parent handbook. Even though we don't totally love all the stuff that's in it sometimes, and we think it could use a little bit of a revision in certain areas, we decided if we say we do it, we're going to do it. And so we took a lot of time during in-service to make sure we knew what that said, and we had systems in place to keep ourselves accountable for what we're going to say we're doing. We have a solid rock star student management team, and they're working really hard. We also, as you know, and Erin mentioned, we have updated attendance procedures. So we're still working through how to systematize those. We are giving personal phone calls daily to any student who is not in class. And we are making those twice a day to make sure that if a kiddo is not in class, their parent knows about it. And hopefully they're getting there really shortly after that phone call. We're also, we have graduation coaches. They're very intentional. They keep kids accountable. They're great at both external rewards and really truly internal like motivation for kids and just building strong relationships. And our staff is great. We have caring adult connections. We talk about students all the time. Everything is student centered. We have champion meetings coming up. If you don't know what those are, it's where we actually kind of like adopt a student to build an even more impactful relationship with them. And we're changing the way we do that. In the past, it's kind of been like a last 2 weeks of the quarter ditch effort to like get kids to the finish line. And we decided we actually want to kind of see what kids can do themselves the last 2 weeks of the quarter and getting themselves through, and then really looking at, okay, who needs this longer term intervention and how can we make it more impactful? So we're excited to do that. And then we have some barrier removal that we're working through, La Clinica, and thanks to Tiffany's work, we have a school-based health center that just opened at PHS. So hoping that kids aren't missing class because of doctor's appointments, but we're being able to provide those here, and a great mental health support therapist. Maslow and our community care specialists are working hard as well. So that's how we're prioritizing that. Our second priority is student support. And so we actually have 2 new resource teachers in our special education department. And so we're working hard to make sure that we're all aligned in our special education, and spending a lot of time doing kind of like boot camp effort on special education and ELL, making sure that teachers are able to really put into place the accommodations and supports that those students need. We're also working on an MTSS model similar to what you've seen from the elementary and the middle school, hoping to have a really cool triangle to show you eventually, but we don't have one of those right now. And it's not just because I'm new. We also are starting to take this look at a whole staff focus on best practice. You've heard already about our SIOP focus and SEEKS professional developments, and we're really investing in those on days when we don't have students. And you can continue to read on, but just our student resource center and doing a lot of progress monitoring with data is how we're supporting students. Go ahead. All right. I know you're not getting tired of it. Family engagement is something that we are also prioritizing. So we have created a family engagement team, kind of following along with that same shared leadership model. And we are just a couple of steps behind our other schools because we didn't jump into this work as a high school last year. So we're getting to learn from the work of the elementary school staff, and Erica and I are working closely together to get our teams trained by Sherry Wilson. And part of that is redesigning our events to not just be cool parties, which we also do and we're really good at, but also to build capacity. So we redesigned our open house event to not only be like a meet and greet with teachers, but also to have breakout sessions. And we asked our teachers to host those sessions. And so we had everything from like how to build a really cool homecoming float and be involved in our spirit competition, all the way to how to read a transcript, how to access PowerSchool, where should your kiddo be at the end of each grade level or at the end of each quarter. And so we're hoping to continue to do those kinds of redesigned events. We also know that this building is beautiful and it continues to be a gathering place for community, and we're really thankful for that. And so what we did is we did a communications audit to see like, how are we communicating to families? How are we opening our doors and making sure people are feeling welcome? And that this place is not just a school, but really an anchor for people to come to and be part of the community. So looking at bilingual signage, looking at positive messaging, looking at, are we hitting people in different areas like social media? Like, do they only check Facebook? Are we giving them emails? Are we texting them? Are we making personal phone calls? All of that to go into our family engagement. We're really excited to see the breakdown of that data. We didn't get a preview, so I'm a little jealous. And then continuing with our athletics and activities, great JPAL program. We have very active booster clubs. Our community is really involved, as you saw if you were here on Sunday with the fire department, just welcoming home our athletes and just continuing to make sure we have kiddos who are community focused. So like our leadership group is doing a coat drive. They already did a sock drive. Our link crew did like a homecoming tailgate party. We did a Halloween carnival. And so even though the family engagement isn't about the party place, we are still trying to build an atmosphere of like, you're welcome here and this is your building. So by the time you get to us, you know it well, and you know that people are going to greet you with smiles and love. So again, these 3 priorities exist to support the magic that happens in classrooms, because we're all about teaching and learning. So when we can anchor ourselves and knowing that those 3 things are taken care of, then we can turn our sights to instruction. So that's our destination. And we are already focusing on instruction, don't get me wrong, but being able to shift from logistics to learning is huge. And I know that we've all been thankful for that shift. We have formed an instructional leadership team with help from Jessica and HR to figure out how we can really prioritize that leadership experience. And we're examining our PLCs. At the high school, it is a challenge to have true PLCs because we have teachers who teach multiple preps. And it's not like you can get in the same room with 4 other people who teach the same subject as you. You are those 4 people, and you're examining data yourself. And so we're really trying to figure out how can we utilize that same PDSA cycle, but maybe in a different way. We are creating a shared vision around learning. So what is great teaching and learning? How do we go from good to great? How are we aiming for that every single day? And what does every PHS student get no matter whose class they're in? Making sure that we have those guaranteed pieces for every student. And then also creating professional development that inspires and empowers our staff members to be the best they can be in front of our students. And we're doing some of that in-house. We're looking outward to see what we can do, but really making sure that the best people are in front of our kids all the time. And then we're charting the course. This is just the beginning. So what's happening in 1 year, what's happening in 3 years, what's happening in 5 years and beyond. We have big dreams of building our CTE programs so that we have, like, maybe we could staff the Boys and Girls Club and we could give kids credit, and it could be like an education pathway or something. Or maybe we can have a medical, right? So like just figuring out ways that we can give our kids hands-on experiences and the best instruction and continue, because we already do great things, but how can we go from good to great? Some challenges that we're facing, because I know you wanted to know those things. We do have a lot of new staff members on board, and that's not a bad thing. It just makes things bumpy sometimes. Make sure that we're communicating well, to make sure everybody's on the same page, that we know where to find microscopes, or we know how much money we can spend on this thing. Again, I already said this, but we're realigning from logistics to learning. We are still paying attention to logistics, but we don't have to take half as much brain space to do that, which is great. We are looking at alternative education. It's no surprise that kids get a little wild sometimes, and wanting to make sure that kids are able to find the best fit for them. We know that the traditional high school model isn't the best for everyone. In fact, we don't even know if it's super great for all of our kids who are actually here right now. And so how can we be flexible with that? How can we offer some different opportunities for kids? And we are doing some bell schedule work, and I'm excited to see how we might be able to do some like hybrid different opportunities. I already said, if everything's important, nothing really is. So we have to figure out what we're focusing on, and that comes with a plan. And then continuing to build capacity for shared leadership. I'm really excited about the Seeks opportunity because there's great things happening here. And our teachers don't always get to see each other do magic. They don't always get to get into each other's classrooms. And oftentimes we like drive to Portland to see some great PD, and that's great. But we could also just like walk next door and watch our friend teach, and it's like super valuable. So I'm excited about that. How could we use your support? A lot of like continuing to keep our students involved in the work. I'm so thankful that you have student reps and you're asking for student voice and choice. That's very valuable. Continue to support us by being present. That makes all the difference because you know what's going on. And continue to craft and revise policy that best supports students. One of the things that I was going to bring to your attention to get kind of specific. Yes, I love the time idea. I also was at a COSA event and we had student leaders come and do a panel. And one of the things that they were talking about was looking at social media challenges and seeing how we can build our policies that go beyond just like what's happening in school, but a lot of stuff is happening on phones, on social media, and it's affecting our students inside of class. I know that that gets complicated and it gets a little bit scary because we're going into people's phones and all those kinds of things. But one of the students had an experience where a social media challenge directly impacted her and it changed the culture of school in a positive way because they were able to work with the board to figure out next steps. We don't see a ton of that we know of in school, but we know that is affecting kids' mental health and anxiety and all those things. So those are some ways that we could use your support. Any questions?
Great presentation. Thanks for being here. I don't have any questions. I can't believe I don't have any questions, but it was super thorough and I just appreciate that.
Great presentation. I don't really have any questions either. No, because you were really thorough and I appreciate like you went really in depth with your data and I really appreciate that. And so you answered all the questions I was thinking. I wrote them down and then you answered them. So you did great.
I do have a question. You talked about affinity groups for students. Are there affinity groups for staff? Oh, okay. Nice.
Well, you don't get to escape completely. No, actually, I actually don't have any questions specifically for you either. And but thank you. You know, something that you did really modeled really well, and all of you did, was share the data, share what's going on. And I think I can't stress enough, and I know that you feel this, at least I think that you do. This board is here to support you. Our kids are behind, and I know you're working really hard to help catch them up. So I just ask you to continue sharing with us what's going on and continue sharing with us what you need, because we're here to support you. We're here to support our kids. And we're never going to be in trouble. We just need to know where we're at and what we need to do to best support our kids. And we got your back. So thank you for all the time that you took to prepare these presentations. I know that there's a lot we don't see behind the scenes that leads to this day. And I'm just so proud to be a part of this, doing this work with you and being on this journey with all of you to support our kiddos in Phoenix Talent. So thank you. Brent, I'll leave it to you.
Yeah, thank you. And I just continue to be impressed with our team and just and our board really heard this weekend from Brandon Fleming, and really love and compassion, lead with love and compassion. And could it be as simple as that? And it may be, and you see a lot of love and compassion in your presentations tonight, and what you see is what you get. That's actually happening in our our classrooms. I will say Joe brought it to my attention that news outlet out of Portland called today to call us about, and I think Kelly, you may have talked to him. Thank you for stepping in there. But really the challenge that we have with mobility and homelessness, one of the highest rates in the state, Phoenix Talent Schools with that. And so the challenges that our kids and their families are facing as far as homelessness, houselessness, and really, experiencing a lot of challenges. And so really leading with basic needs, making sure they can we can help fulfill those in order to learn. That you can, as KATU did a story tonight on that. So it just really kind of continues to ground you. It's not an excuse. It's not something we're just going to say, oh, that's our demographics. It's we need to be thinking creatively more, and that's where we can have board support on continuing when things get tough in budgets, offering as many programs that kids connect with. And that's what this board has done for decades and decades. And so appreciate that. That's all I have.
I intended to give you the last word and then I thought of something else. I think, this board is extremely active in advocating for our district and education throughout the state with our legislature. One of the things that we're really thinking about, and you heard Don ask, is advocating for funding, because it's a real concern coming into this next legislative session. And so I just encourage you to please connect with Joe as a resource, connect with with Brent, with your assistant superintendents. We need to make sure we can tell our story to the legislature. And so any of those little anecdotes that you see happen throughout the day, throughout the week, throughout the month, throughout the year, those stories are what's going to help us advocate for kids. So just keep that in mind as we go through, and I'm so thankful we have a resource like a communications director, but I know Brent is really focused on this too. But those little stories matter, and we want to hear them so that we can share those with the people making those decisions. So thank you so much. Have a good night. We shut